So many Spanish learners out there are already familiar with the basics of Spanish. They can conjugate a lot of verbs, write in full sentences, understand quite a bit, recognize a lot of words, but they're not necessarily comfortable speaking in conversation. And in many cases, almost completely unable to have even a basic back and forth conversation. One of our students said it perfectly after joining a live class. He said, "It seems so basic until you try to put it into real-time conversation." This class was super helpful. I love the practice opportunities. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Why something that seems so basic can then seem almost impossibly hard when you don't have the right opportunities. And we'll discuss what to do about it. So if you've ever wondered, why can I read or write or understand Spanish, but I can't communicate the way I want? You're in the right place. After working with hundreds of learners, I can tell you that their biggest breakthroughs don't come necessarily from knowing more words or mastering more tenses. Rather, it's being able to express a thought, even if it's basic, or express a new thought that they could not do before and be understood, oftentimes using the same words that they already knew. This is when Spanish starts to feel real, and that's when progress starts to increase exponentially. But before we dive in, be sure to grab your free copy of my Spanish Fluency Blueprint. It's a step-by-step guide created on the same principles that we use to help our students every single day. It will guide you from just studying Spanish to speaking it naturally, and you'll see how to make the best use of your study time by targeting exactly what you need for conversation. You can find that by going to ericareallanguage.com/blueprint or by following the link in the description. Most learners assume that the key to speaking Spanish more confidently is learning more vocabulary or mastering more grammar. But knowing more Spanish on paper does not automatically mean that you can use it in conversation, because speaking is a skill, not a subject. And putting those words together into coherent thoughts does not happen automatically, even if you know them. And it's like learning all the guitar chords but never actually strumming a song. If you feel like the knowledge in your head is very scattered, then you've trained what I call your study brain. That's the one that recognizes words, rules, and patterns. But your speaking brain doesn't have enough reps yet. So when someone suddenly asks you a question, like, ¿qué hiciste el fin de semana? Even if at some point in the past you've studied pretérito indefinido and you've actually gone over all of the verbs and all of the vocabulary you would need to answer that simple question, if it's only your study brain that kicks in, it could take a very long time to formulate a response because you have to search for the words. That silence isn't proof that you don't know Spanish or that you don't know the words. It's just that your brain hasn't built up the reflexes for more spontaneous conversation. And it's a process for sure, but this regular conversational practice is the part that most people skip or don't have nearly enough of in their Spanish learning routine. And then they wonder why all their studying just isn't showing up in real life while they don't really have the results that they want. And so what they do to compensate is study either the same information over and over again because for some reason it's just not coming to the brain when they need to recall it, or study more and new additional Spanish, thinking that doing that one day this is going to lead to confident conversation, that the more that they know, the better they'll be able to converse. Does any of that sound familiar? Have you ever done that? Give me a like on the video if anything is resonating with you so far. That helps more Spanish learners who are stuck in this same phase find this message as well. So what do? You start practicing conversation even before you feel ready. And I know that sounds risky because after all, you don't want to cement bad pronunciation habits, and most of us don't really like making tons of mistakes. But this is why you have to approach it strategically. Number one, flood your ears with real Spanish. Make sure that your routine is balanced. Make sure that it has enough input, especially on the listening side at first. Listen to some kind of Spanish daily. Podcasts, songs, videos, short clips. And don't just hear them, mimic them. Try to copy their rhythm, intonation, and even their pauses. Doing this regularly can really help to get your pronunciation up to a reasonable level so that when you are engaging in this conversational practice, you can speak more confidently and be understood easily. And you have to balance that input with preferably guided speaking, especially at first. In most cases, it's very difficult to have the opportunity to do some self-study and then go practice exactly what you just studied. Rather, you're doing some self-study and then you may just go out and try to find speaking opportunities, but these could be way over your head, way over your level on a topic that you're completely unfamiliar with. So ultimately, you want to start with some kind of guided speaking where you have the opportunity to practice what you've been studying on your own. This is something that we do inside of my conversation club, the Caminos Conversation Club. You're going to speak about what you've been going over that week with daily opportunities to speak Spanish using the materials that we've provided and that you've been studying yourself. And then having the opportunity for gentle corrections from real teachers and then putting that into practice and trying again is gold. That feedback loop is so important. And number 3, you want to start small, but speak often. You see, at first, it's not really about long, eloquent, perfect sentences. It's more about speed of retrieval. So the more times that you can practice and have the same conversation with different people, therefore the conversation isn't really going to be the same because they're real people with different experiences, the faster your retrieval is going to be. Imagine spending 30 or 40 minutes just answering the question, ¿Qué hiciste el fin de semana? And also asking your speaking partner the same thing and listening to that. Getting new ideas, new vocabulary, getting corrections from a teacher. It seems so basic. If you were to just sit down and write out your response to that, you could do that and feel like you were done. But like we talked about before, it feels so basic until you put it into practice in real conversation. You might be asked a question back. I have to think a little bit. Oh, how can I elaborate on that? I don't really have the words. Let me get some help. Your speaking partner responds with something very interesting and you want to ask a question back and you have to think about how to do that using what you know. But the more reps that you get in on the same topic, the faster your retrieval will be. Because remember, in real life conversation, we don't have time to mentally go through the list of conjugations until we find the right one. Those individual conjugations just become like more vocabulary words that we can pull out instantly because we've used this particular one so many times and this particular one so many times. It is about the repetition in real conversation. Repetition in real conversation will consolidate what you are learning on your own, little by little. And that is how your brain learns to retrieve information quickly instead of just recognizing it passively. So study brain is important. It does help you. You can learn something and say, I understand this. It makes sense. You can recognize the patterns. You can explain them, but it's still all in your head. But your speaking brain says, I can use this. I can retrieve it slowly at first, of course. Speed comes over time, but you can get the words out. And then you get to that point of fluency, even if it's fluency on that topic or answering that question. Fluency is, I don't even have to think about it. The words just come. So while most Spanish learners are waiting for this overall general fluency and feeling confident talking about anything, most are not following the most efficient path to get there. Because cyclical fluency, feeling fluent and confident answering a certain question or on a certain topic, will get you to overall fluency faster. It boosts your confidence, it gives you real world practice going back and forth, and those words that you're learning are no longer just scattered in your brain waiting to get forgotten. They're being used continuously. And that knowledge is just going to carry over into the next conversation and the next, until your study time becomes greatly reduced. You don't really have to prepare so much for your conversations anymore, and eventually you won't have to prepare at all. But the only way to build that bridge from knowing to using to automatic fluency is through repetition, feedback, and real interaction. So don't default to study brain, even though it's more comfortable. Don't default to thinking that the more you study, the better you're going to speak. It is much better to learn a small amount and go use it as fast as you can than to consume large amounts of information over days, weeks, months, and years and be unable to have a conversation because you just don't have the practice doing so. It's something I see every single day. In all of my programs, speaking isn't something that we save for later. It's incorporated as part of the process from day one. And if you're wondering how to put all of that together and have that balanced routine where you have the input and you have the study, but you have that speaking practice as well, then definitely download my blueprint, the Spanish Fluency Blueprint, so that you have a clear picture of how you could put it all together. ericgraylanguage.com/blueprint. Which of your brains do you feel like you have trained more? Comment study brain or speaking brain in the comments. Once again, don't forget to download your blueprint. It'll show you the exact path from studying Spanish to speaking it confidently using that fluency loop that we talked about. And when you're done with that, go ahead and watch this next video right here. I'll show you how to connect your thoughts in Spanish and keep the conversation flowing smoothly.